right, good evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Before we get started with the debate itself, I want to real quickly talk about who Strive is and why we're hosting this debate. Strive is an organization at the high school that is student-run, and it's designed to give students a voice in their education by helping them do things like this, where they can ask questions of the candidates running for school board election. And so tonight we have numerous Strive students here. We have 8 students that are going to be asking 8 questions to the candidates. And so the format's going to go kind of like this. We're going to have each candidate's going to make a 1-minute opening statement. We're going to have 8 questions with a minute 30 for each of the candidates to respond to that question. And then we're going to ask 2 follow-up questions per candidate that are specific to that candidate. And they're going to have a 1-minute response time for each of those questions. And then they're going to make a 1-minute closing statement to end the night. So with that, I will turn it over to Addie Beal for the first question. Oh, sorry. Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Opening statement.
Oh, thank you. I'm Dave Holden. I've lived in the Saline schools area for 20 years. 3 of my sons have been educated here. We have a very good school district. We're very fortunate and blessed to live in a community that values education. I look forward to speaking to the customer tonight, the student, because I think everything that we do should be geared towards helping the student. I'd also like to say that the 3 people here and myself are very well-intended people. I think we've all done good things for our community, and I think we all have the best interest of the student at heart. We may disagree on how we're going to get there and how we're going to maintain the financial stability of the district, but I look forward to an engaging session tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patty Tanner, and I've lived in Saline for 11 years. Like many of you, our family moved here for the excellent schools. My husband Rick and I have a 9th grader at the high school. I've been very lucky to work from home for the last 12 years, which has given me the freedom to be involved in the schools. I've been on PTA boards, PTO boards, I volunteered in classrooms, served on a variety of district-wide boards. My actions have invested me in the process of keeping Saline area schools great, and running for school board gives me the opportunity to take that to a district-wide level instead of just working at a building level. I have a proven track record of collaboration with parents, teachers, administrators, and Saline community members. My efforts on behalf of Saline area schools have always been about making alliances, not adversaries. Thank you.
Mr. Freeze.
My name is David Allen Freeze. I am the incumbent board member running for re-election. I would like to thank Strive for holding this forum this evening and for all the individuals who have shown up to hear the candidates. My wife and I have been associated with the Saline community since, I believe, 1976. Our son Michael graduated from Saline High School in 2002. I am the only candidate that does have a record. Whether how people want to view that. But my reason for running is primarily that I was a career educator. I taught in public schools for 38 years. I believe in public service. I believe in community involvement. And being on the school board allows me to fulfill 2 of my passions. Number 1 is kids. Number 2 is community service.
Mr. Zimmer.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Aaron and Strive for organizing tonight's event. Secondly, I also like to thank Mr. Freeze, Ms. Tanner, and Mr. Holden for the many years of dedicated service to serving young people. Thank you. As many know, I'm running for school board, election November 8th. Give you a quick highlight of my background. I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. I have 1 degree in labor relations. I have a 2nd degree in organizational industrial psychology. My wife Susan is here someplace. Wife for 24 years. I have 2 children. Rob is a freshman at Michigan State, and a daughter Allison who's a junior here at Saline High. Professionally, I've held managerial and executive positions in corporations for over 20 years. I've also been involved as a consultant to executive officers of large corporations, nonprofit leaders, and educational institutions for over 11 years. Within Saline schools, I've been involved in Saline schools for over a decade. I was involved in creation and then participated in long-range planning, multiple revenue generation solutions, and led 2 community-based efforts. One to retain academic offerings in middle school, the second to adopt weighted grades at the high school. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and looking forward to your questions.
One more quick announcement. If you have a cell phone, please silence it at this time.
Hi everybody, my name is Addie Beal and I am a senior currently at Saline High School. The first question is, in your opinion, what is the role of a school board member? What do you see yourself doing in that role?
Ms. Tanner, we'll start with you. We'll alternate.
Okay.
School board member, a school board is a policy-making body. We hire people to make the decisions, not run school operations. So I'm not going to be a micromanager if I'm elected to the school board. I think the school board is there to get the right people in place, make the hard decisions about policy, and then let the administrators, the teachers, and everybody run the district.
All right, Mr. Freeze.
The role of the school board primarily is that of governance. We do make policy. We're responsible for hiring and evaluating the superintendent. We do approve a budget. And in other instances, there's some less favorable things that we do, hearing proposed suspensions and various things like that. I do not whatsoever believe in micromanaging. That's why we have a superintendent of schools to run our daily operations.
Okay. Mr. Zimmer.
I believe the role of the school board member is a trustee. That person operates in trust of the community. They serve the needs of our community, our students, our administrators, our teachers, the taxpayers of the community. That trustee responsibility is trusting to assure that our policies of the district align with the interests of the community, assuring that our financial matters are managed in such a manner that we have solvency as a community, and that we have a curriculum that ensures that we are operating in the 21st century.
And Mr. Holden.
I believe the role of the school board is to set the strategic vision for the district and lay out to the superintendent what we want the district to look like and what results we want from the district. I think at that point we hand it over to the educators. We let them determine what the objectives are and the tactics to help meet that strategic vision. I think there needs to be a feedback loop on an interval basis to measure progress. And I think that is really the role of the school board. In addition, the school board is responsible for the money of the district and providing for the needs so that we can educate our children to the best ability that we can.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Heather Harmon, and I am a senior at Saline High School. The second question is, what dynamics do you feel constitute a healthy learning environment?
Mr. Freeze, we'll start with you.
I think number one is that our schools have to be safe. They should be nurturing. We should have a curriculum that meets the needs of all children, be it those who are attending a four-year university or those who wish to follow a different career path. I think it's very, very, very important that the curriculum in some ways reflects the needs of the community. And we are lucky in the fact that we have an outstanding teaching staff. Our paraprofessionals, if you watch them operate, they are very caring individuals. Our bus drivers fulfill an important function, as do all of our support staff. And I think we're very lucky in this community that all these individuals combine together through their efforts, through the curriculum that we've adopted, to have a very good learning environment.
Mr. Zimmer.
I think that there was a class I went to last week at this cyber conference, and it was a program put on by Schwartz Creek High School. It talked about the Power 100. And the thing that I found very powerful out of that was it talked about that for anti-bullying, which is the topic of that session, it talked about building a culture of trust and of mutual respect. Trust and respect between administration and employees of the district, between teachers and students in the district, and between students in the district. Beyond that basic premise of building a trust, which only can occur through a lot of interaction between students, their teachers, administrations and their students, coaches and their players. There has to be academically a strong curriculum, one that's integrated from first grade through 12th grade, so that it's an iterative learning process for students from first grade through 12th grade. Has to have a robust program addressing the mutual needs of the district. Many people are not going to college. They may go to vocational arts, they may go to culinary arts. We're fortunate at Saline to have those programs among the very best in the state, and those should be maintained.
Mr. Holt.
I would agree with many of the things that have been said. It's certainly important that we have a secure environment, that students feel safe while they're in the building and during the school day. I also agree that there should be a level of mutual respect, especially when you get to the upper levels. We're talking about young adults. If we treat them that way with respect, they will give the respect back. I've had 3 sons. They've all been different learners, so I've kind of seen the full spectrum of the curriculum offering, and it's good. It's something that we want to keep and maintain and hopefully enhance over time. And it should be integrated so that we're serving the needs of all students, regardless of ability. Beyond that, I think it's important that the teachers connect with the student and get students to think creatively. And I know we put a lot of emphasis on standardized tests. I have my own thoughts and opinions on that. But I think it's important that we get our young people to become free thinkers, become critical thinkers, and ultimately become productive members of society.
Ms. Tanner.
I kind of forgot the question. What are the needs of a school? Is that it?
What constitutes a healthy learning environment?
Okay. I think we need a climate of inclusion where every student feels that they're engaged and involved in the school and they're respected, that people want them to be there. I think we need a challenging yet appropriate curriculum. So challenging might be good for some kids, not for others. We need to make sure that we're doing all levels for all kids and not just focusing on certain kids in the district. I think we need the excellent teachers and administrators that we have who continue to work with our kids and not work collaboratively with our kids. And I also think the safety issue is very important as well. We need to keep kids safe while they're in school and while they're out of school.
Hi, I'm Michael Doe, and I'm a senior at the high school. My question is, one aspect of education that students find is missing is communication and collaboration among different parties in the district. In what ways would you facilitate improved coordination and communication among students, teachers, administrators, parents, coaches, etc.?
As I mentioned the last bit, I thought the Schwartz Creek program was very powerful. At Schwartz Creek, the assistant principal has drop-in sessions every other week. They have up to 200 students that come into those sessions. Those are open sessions for anybody who wants to come in. There's no notes taken. It's a interactive conversation. What they do in that setting, when they have a situation where a student has bullied somebody, they bring them into those sessions, and rather than punish them per se, which actually is a factor that's included, but they actually look at what was the issue, and they try to bring the person into the process. Rather than becoming a person who's been punished for the treatment, they work on helping them become educated as to what are the issues, to create a culture of inclusion, including a climate that is supportive of each other. Those type of efforts, I think, are critical. Same thing happens with teachers. One of the challenges we have right now, class size they are, it's very difficult for our educators to get to know the students in the classroom. When you have 42 kids in the classroom, it's impossible for them to get to know the students to the extent they need to.
I think the model of success for Saline schools has always been that triangle of the student, the parent, and the faculty. And when those three constituents are communicating with each other, then we can create an environment that is conducive for learning. I agree with many of the things that Mr. Zimmer said in terms of how we should go about doing that, especially when we get to issues of discipline and things like that. We need to bring the parent into the process as early as possible, so those type of issues can be confronted. They're more likely to be resolved at the kitchen table as opposed to a detention room. And I think we have to, if we just engage our young people and have that honest dialogue with them, a dialogue that's grounded in mutual respect, I think that we'll find it's a very conducive environment.
Sarah.
I actually think we do a good job of communicating in this school district. It's getting people to act on that, the communication that they're given. Our website is amazing. It has all sorts of things. As I've been preparing for this, I found budget documents and teacher contracts and all kinds of things that they're there. People need to use them. People are constantly invited to public forums like this. This is actually the most people I've ever seen come to a public forum. Usually people don't turn out. You give them the information, you hope they turn out, you hope they respond. So I think we need maybe to find a better way to engage the people that we're communicating with. I think the teacher websites, especially at the high school, are amazing. Moodle, I think getting parents involved and not just saying, go ahead kid, you find it out. I need to see what's also going on there. And I think, you know, if we can do that, if we can actually get people involved and engaged, then our communication is going to be a lot better.
Ms. Freeze.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry. My ears are catching up on me.
In what ways would you facilitate improved coordination and communication among the different groups in the district?
As an individual, actually, I can't, as an individual board member, I can't do anything. I have to work in collaboration with six other people. We are a policy-making body. It's not an I or me, it's all of us together to enact any changes that would take place. I agree with Ms. Tanner that we do have a very open means of communication in this district by our webpage. I know all of us board members are available if people want to talk to us. But I think the thing is that having, once again, been in public education for a long time, communication between parent and student, teacher and student has always been at the forefront. And I think in some cases you have to take the step yourself to contact or talk to the teacher, talk to the building administrator, talk to your counselor, talk to your parents. And I think that's very important. For that dialogue to exist, everyone has to be involved in it.
Hi, I'm Natalie Wysocki, a junior at the high school. Next question is, this year Lansing has mandated teacher performance evaluations, causing districts across Michigan to come up with a way to evaluate these teachers. Do you agree with this mandate?
Yes, I agree that there needs to be some form of evaluation for teachers, and really everybody. I think any of us who are in a profession get evaluated at some point. I think we can have a healthy debate in terms of what that evaluation will look like and what we're actually measuring, and I don't think it can be one size fits all. I think the third grade teacher at Pleasant Ridge shouldn't be held to the same standard as the third grade teacher at Harvest. You have different dynamics in those buildings. So I think we need to have the evaluations, but I think we need to be careful about how we go about that, because certainly we want to have an issue of fairness to the teacher. And it needs to be something that's objective rather than subjective. And I think if we do that, we'll be able to get a better sense of how our teachers measure up. And I think most of our teachers will measure up very well. We have a very good faculty and staff. But those are the rules that have come down from Lansing. They're not hard and fast yet. I think we can influence those rules. But I'm supportive of teacher evaluations.
Ms. Sarah.
The question was, do I agree with the mandate? Not necessarily. Local control has worked for dozens of years, and every school district around the state, the country, everybody's been able to do it a certain way, and it's worked for them. And we really don't know what they're going to evaluate on. Some of this stuff might not come down until 2014, so we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know what it's going to look like. So, you know, is change for change's sake the best thing? I'm not really sure, but hopefully, whatever they come up with, it will be a collaborative effort of teachers, administrators, school board members across the state, and everybody can work together to make those work for all the people that are involved.
Mr. Freeze?
I concur with Ms. Tanner in the fact that we're finding that Lansing is doing more and more to take away local control. As a classroom teacher, former classroom teacher in my 38 years, I would imagine I was probably evaluated 19 to 20 times. Evaluations have been going on for an awful long time. I know we evaluate continually in Saline. I believe it's every 2 years. And I know right now there's the SCA and the administration are working together to come up with a new evaluation document that will, and I think it's very important that both sides have a say in that document, because when we start forcing things upon our employees, they begin to lose distrust. And we have to all work together if we are going to have a successful school district. You know, it can't be we versus them. We're all together in this. Parents, teachers, administration, and above all, you young ladies and gentlemen.
Susan?
Well, actually, I have a challenge here in that with my background in human resources, I've built performance management systems for universities, for nonprofits, for corporations, manufacturing operations, those entering populations. I suffer from knowing too much in this topic area. To that extent, what I have found over the years, and every time I've done it, as Mr. Freeze identified, a collaborative process between the individuals who are participating as recipients of the tool and the administrators who have responsibility for administering the tool. Both parties need to work together. Over the years, I found the concept, what we refer to in industry and I refer to in the educational setting, as a 360 review process, where you have feedback from your peers, you have feedback from your administrators, you have feedback from your parents and students in terms of their satisfaction with your experiences. And it has to be done on a multi-year basis. The reality is in education, the 6th grade teachers' scores of their students, in many cases, based on the 5th grade teachers' contributions. And that has to be recognized. So that has to be incorporated and recognized in multi-nature, multi-year, multi-discipline aspect of education.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dane Turner and I'm a junior at the high school. My question is, regardless of whether you agree with the mandate or not, do you think the effectiveness of a teacher should be measured or determined?
And how do you think specifically it should be measured and determined?
Absolutely, teacher effectiveness should be measured. It's been that way all this time. I don't think the teachers have a problem with being evaluated. I think the administrators do a good job with it. What did you say?
Specifically, what kinds of tools would you use?
Personally, I think somebody in the classroom watching what's going on, not just once, maybe several times. I'm not a big fan of saying MEP scores should determine the teacher evaluation, because I'm not sure that that data is always the best data. So I think hands-on, people in the classroom, other teachers, administrators, people who know what teaching should look like, what good teaching should look like, those are the people who should be evaluating.
Kind of a quick follow-up to that, quick yes or no question, do you support student evaluations of teachers?
If those students were trained for what to look for.
Mr. Freeze?
I think one thing when we're looking at the effectiveness of a teacher is how that individual teacher is viewed by not only his peers, by the parents of the students who have had, these kids have been in his class, and also, most importantly, do students want to be in his class, in that person's class? I think that's a very important thing. And we have to realize we can't evaluate all teachers by that standard either, because some teachers may be teaching a totally different subject. I think it's a lot easier for someone to want to be in a gym class, for example, than maybe AP physics. I mean, there's a big difference between the two of them. The subject matter is so totally different. And I think that's something we have to look at. But I think teachers on the whole, once again, provide a safe environment, be nurturing, And I think students will appreciate what we're trying to do for them.
Yeah, in terms of the second part first, I think that there's a definite chemistry between the teacher and the student. And I know with my kids, they've had numerous teachers over the years. And some teachers have connected with my son very well, other teachers didn't. And my daughter, the same thing. That's true with every child. I can talk to a parent and I'll have nothing but praise about this teacher in terms of how the teacher worked with my child. This parent will say, that teacher was awful for my child. And just the opposite happens because it's a matching of the two. Beyond that, teachers struggle with the curriculum, which at the high school level is now standardized. They have standardized testing applied to it. So you have some teachers that created the curriculum, they own it, they live it, they breathe it. And other teachers given it and have to work with it. So they struggle with it and that has to be accepted as well in the process. In terms of the, should they be held to some sort of effectiveness measure? Absolutely. Everyone needs that feedback in their life. And you know, you get it from your spouse, you get it from your kids, and you get it in every environment. It's important. That's how you grow as a person, how you grow in your profession.
Well, I'm an old ball coach, and when I would coach a team, I'd always look at what we look like the first game of the year and what we look like in the last game of the year, and measure that progress, and did we improve as a team. So I think at looking at performance of students in year, how did they progress during that school year, I think is something that can measure teacher effectiveness very readily. I also believe there should be a review process. It should be multifaceted. There should be parents should have a part in that process. The students should have a part in that process. Certainly the administration or peer should have input in that process. And I think if you get those different inputs, I think it's not a complex process to determine whether a teacher is being effective or not.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Nichols, senior at Saline High School. My question for you is, should we find ourselves in another budget shortfall, what would be your priorities and or your strategies when it comes to balancing our district budget?
Wow, we just went through that. Yeah, that's a very difficult question because truthfully, we have to realize that our political leaders in Lansing have let down the children in this state. And they have cut our budget by $470 per student, which is an awful lot of money to try to make up. We also are hit with a double whammy that over the last few years, we have had a declining enrollment. And funding for public school is based primarily on enrollment increases. I mean, it's the number of bodies that we have in this district. And we have suffered the loss of students, but it hasn't been a tremendous loss. So if you lose 50 kids across a K-12 system, you're going to have to have the same number of teachers. You know, and that's a factor. So that leads to budget costs. What are we going to do? We have approximately right now a 3.29 budget surplus. We also have to hope that the state is not going to be as draconian as they were this past year. I think it's very important that all of us dialogue with our representatives and senators and say, hey, our kids are the #1 priority. Kids are priority #1, and that's what we should focus on.
Thank you.
Well, it's interesting, in preparation for this process, I had a chance to go out and pull the state funding from 2003 to 2011, and I compared Saline, Dexter, and Chelsea. All three districts have basically the same amount of foundation value from the state, so they get the same amount of money per student. And the simple fact is, for Saline schools, we have received the same or more money every year per student since 2003. So we've not had a decrease in the amount of money coming to our district. Our challenge is our expenses exceed our revenue. Chelsea has a 22% reserve rate. Dexter 15%. We have less than 2%. So that's our challenge. In terms of how we go after to solve the problems, we get in the classrooms, you make sure the class size is the size they need to be to affect quality education. Make sure our teachers have the tools to do their jobs. Today we have teachers that are buying books for the classroom out of their own pocket. That's not how it should be. And that happened because we've cut and cut our supply budget over the years. That needs to get adjusted and it has to be reflected in the true priorities of the district. Then if you go through that process, you look at the core classes. Those core classes are important to the academic development of our students. From there, you then go to your electives, then you go to your auxiliary services, such as sports, such as music, such as performing arts. And you say, how can we address these things a different way? One of the things we have in front of us as an opportunity is our foundation. Our foundation could grow tremendously where it is today and help us in that regard.
Thank you. Mr. Holden?
Well, facts are stubborn things. The reality is we're getting $400,000 more this year from the state than we got last year. So any talk of draconian cuts from Lansing, I think are flat out baseless. Given that, the administrators have given concessions. The support staff has given concessions, 23% over the last 5 years. Parents have paid more in terms of paid participation, activity fees, parking fees for students. The SEA agreement comes up at the end of June, and I think we have to have an honest discussion about that agreement. I think there are things in that agreement that can be looked at and adjusted without financially impacting the teachers, specifically the healthcare aspect of it. I think that's low-hanging fruit that can be had without cutting benefits. I'm talking about comparable coverage now. So I think that'll be a defining moment for the district, and will determine what type of school district we have moving forward. Because if we don't achieve financial stability, we won't be able to achieve the educational mission of the district.
If we do face another budget shortfall, my priorities would be to maintain the integrity of the schools. We need to investigate other ways, other instructional models, grants, things that we can do to get money into the school district. I've become known as something of a grant writer around here, and there's money out there. We've gotten some, we can get some more. It's tough, but it's not impossible. And I also think we need to think more creatively and spend the revenue that we do have more creatively. We also need to realize that everything is on the table at this point. There are no sacred cows. Everything is up for grabs. Anything can be cut. The other thing that I would prioritize would be to maintain the facilities and the infrastructure, because it doesn't matter how good our teachers are, our curriculum, our students, if they can't get on a bus and get to school every day, or if the roof is falling down around their heads. Somebody has to make that decision that maybe the most important thing right now, today, is to get some of those infrastructure items fixed and then move on to the other things. So we need to do some sort of needs assessment to find out, what are those things that need to be done right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isabella Procaccini. I'm a junior at the high school. And my question is, what would you like to see Saline's alternative education programs look like? For instance, would you support increased online learning opportunities, alternative teaching strategies, changes to special education, or something else?
All the above you mentioned. I think it's important for online learning. That's reality. In my experience as a consultant, I worked remotely in many cases, and lots of our work was done through an online environment. That's a feature that we should pay attention to. We also have to recognize that project-based work is important. When you enter the real world after college, and as you enter college, you'll find that project-based work is very important to your success. We need to have class size that allows our students to have that. With 40 kids in a classroom, you don't have that. We need to recognize that there are some kids that need an alternative education process because their learning skills are different, and they have to recognize in that regard. We also have students that excel vocationally. I have a brother that's a mechanic. He did great in those classes, and that's where his focus should be. We should have those kind of programs. So it has to be multifaceted, recognizing each kid learns differently.
Mr. Holden?
I'm an advocate of online learning. I think it's looking around the corner a little bit in terms of what's the next development of public education. There was a report that was put out by the Michigan Education Report, and 15,000 students have already taken advantage of the Michigan Virtual School. 30% of high school students have taken an online course. 50% of college students have taken an online course. So it's already here, and that infrastructure is developing very rapidly. And I think it's something that we need to look at and seize upon it, because I think it's an advantage. The reality is these students here probably start banging on a keyboard at about age 3. I touched the keyboard for the first time at age 30. So we're talking about a generation and the future generations who are going to be very computer literate at a very young age. And it's not for everybody. I don't think it's one size fits all, but it's certainly part of the educational curriculum that can be developed. I also think in terms of additional revenue, that our AP classes offering in this district are tremendous, probably the best in the state. And that presents an opportunity for us. Why can't we webcast our AP courses around the state so that a chemistry student in the Upper Peninsula can take advantage of our AP course offering? And we'll charge them a tuition to do that. So I think we have to be open-minded about it, and I think it is it's the wave of the future.
Online classes are good for some kids, not for every kid. I would be more in favor of a blended style of online classes where you need a teacher there. Maybe it's not 30 kids, maybe it's more, but I think there needs to be a certified teacher to help the kids that need the help. There's always going to be people that just can't sit down at the computer and do it themselves. They need a little encouragement or a little bit of help. As far as alternative or special ed, we do have an amazing young adult program here. I think we're doing a great job with that. We also have some out-of-the-box things here that, you know, that are different and that don't cost a lot of money. Project Lead the Way. Very little money is needed to run Project Lead the Way. It's just the startup and getting it ready, but that is going to help our kids in STEM education in the future. Our senior capstone experience, that's also an amazing program run at the high school. A multi-curriculum project that I think most kids are very lucky to have. I can't wait for my son to have it. And also we have the consortium classes that I believe most of them are held here. So we have a wide variety of alternative education sources. Thanks.
I agree that one size does not fit all. I think 2 weeks ago we learned about the WAY program that's being offered by the Washington Mead School District, in which those students who traditionally have a hard time in school can do online learning, but they also have to meet with a mentor, and I think that's very important with online learning. There has to be a mentor involved. And these folks that are involved in that program have to be in contact with that mentor 365 days a year. And so there's continued feedback, and I think that's part of it. Some students thrive in a traditional classroom. Others need the hands-on experience. And I think we have to realize as we become much more technological world, at least in the days of my youth, I thought the greatest invention was electrical typewriter. And you talked about the first computer at 30. I think I was well into my 40s. So it's a big difference of what we've seen. I think our young adult program, once again, is award-winning. It was honored by the state of Michigan, I believe, 3 years ago. We also know that, for example, Mr. Miller with his IFFA program, they were honored for their wetlands project. So these kids are doing a whole lot of different type things. We have award-winning programs. We look at our welding program. A young man from Saline finished second in the world. And the young man that he beat to go to world competition was also from Saline. So the top 2 welders in the United States came to our welding program. So those are, and you can't teach welding online. Also, we have to realize that when it comes to, wrap it up, okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patrick Zetterholm. I'm a junior at Saline High School, and my question is, in your opinion, what is the most vital aspect of public education?
With me? The most vital aspect of public education. Well, I think, I'll answer that in general terms. It's a very broad question. But I think that the goal should be that when a child leaves Saline schools, that they're prepared for the next step, whatever that step is for them. Whether they want to enter the workforce and they've been part of the vocational educational offering that we have, and they're going to go directly into the workforce, if they're going to go to a 4-year university or a community college, or enter the military. I think that if we can prepare them for that next step, give them a solid foundation, solid educational foundation underneath them, that they will move forward with confidence. And I think for the most part, we do a great job of that. So I think just to answer that in general term, that would be the answer that I would give, is that we prepare our students for the next step in life.
Sam?
Yeah, that is a very broad question. Really, you're preparing kids for, right now, for the 21st century, to be good citizens, to be good students, to be technologically prepared for what's coming down the pike, and just, I think that public education is so vital, because we think of it as a free education. Obviously, we pay taxes, but it's something that we can really get great schools here in Saline without having to go to a tuition school, pay extra, and not get anything better half the time. I think that's the most important public aspect of public education, is that we have it here. Let's use it.
I think when our community treasures our kids walk into our school doors, we have to really realize that every one of them is unique. And so I think the most vital aspect is that we have to educate the whole child. I think we have to not only educate them cognitively, but also effectively. We need to turn out young ladies and gentlemen who I'm from the old school, and I think self-concept is very, very important. And I think one of the things that we are some way shying away from because of Leave No Child Behind is looking at the self-concept of kids. It's too much being on, every classroom has to be on page 4 on the same day. For those children who can't be on, even if they can't succeed on page 3, they're still getting moved to page 4. And right now we're looking at our kids taking the NEAT test. They changed the cut scores. Those kids who were proficient last year, the odds are some of them will not be proficient this year because of that change by the State Board of Education. That says a lot to a kid that basically, once again, wow, what did I do wrong? And we need to celebrate all those things that they're doing right. I don't know if that answered the question.
Access the opportunity. The simple fact is, public education in the United States created the middle class and has allowed our society to become the most dominant society in the world in the 20th century. Today we look at India, we look at China, other emerging nations. What are they focusing on? Education. So that clearly shows to me the whole world understands the power of education. In terms of Saline, I think it looks at, as I mentioned before, promoting an environment of mutual respect and trust, so the students feel free to ask questions, feel free to challenge, as they need a challenge as part of their personal growth. We need curriculum that prepares them for the 21st century. Reality is, in the 21st century, China is going to be a major player. We should have Chinese as a language in our curriculum. Today, we don't have it. That's a gap. That's something we should look at doing. We also make sure we teach our young people how to live in the 21st century. It's a different world, the 21st century and the 20th century. It's more distance learning. It's more project-based work. It's much more interactive in a dynamic way than it has in the past. In the old days, you would get your paper and go by yourself. Today, you're doing it in a team-based environment, real-time work. I've been in project work in my consulting career. I'm working with people from India, Korea, Australia, Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco concurrently, writing paper concurrently, and that's the reality we have to recognize.
Thank you. All right. So now it's time for our 2 follow-up questions that are candidate specific. We're going to start with Mrs. Tanner. Chris is going to be asking those.
Okay, so what do you think of goal number 4, teacher morale, and what should we do to improve it?
I think, I don't know. I think that the teachers need a climate in the schools that they have a say in what's going on. A lot of these new things that are coming down, mandated state and federal things like No Child Left Behind, new tenure law, new teacher evaluation, I think that's all kind of bearing down on them, especially also since the whole state of Michigan is having a budget problem. It seems to always come down on the teachers for contracts. I think we need to let them know that we're so happy that they're here and we really want them to succeed.
Thank you. So next, Mr. Freeze, should we support the expansion of school choice, especially as a means of raising revenue?
I find that a very difficult question, given the fact we do have a limited school of choice program here in the district. But for every student that we take from another district, it's causing them a financial hardship. So it's almost like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's the mentality that we've gotten into because since the proposed way was developed, it's all about numbers. How many students do you have in your district?
So Mr. Zimmer, do you think we should incorporate more technology in the classroom, and if so, how?
I think we've done a pretty good job of introducing technology to the classroom today. I look at the different classrooms in the middle school, high school, compared to where we were at 15 years ago. We have significant improvements that show up in every day. Teachers are using the tools that are available to them today. What we don't take advantage of is the ability to do simulcast work. Perfect example is, why don't we have a class on China partnering with a school in China so that classrooms work together? It makes it a little much smaller, creates a dynamicness to it. The kids will immediately start to learn about each other's cultures through that experience. They'll start to understand the nuances of everybody. It starts breaking down the walls. What I found over the years I've traveled in my career is people are people everywhere, but only through exposure and familiarity with people do you understand that.
Okay. How can you get comparable healthcare coverage at a lower cost?
You competitively bid it. I think currently, when you look at the MESA insurance that we use to cover our teachers, it's grossly uncompetitive. And in fact, MESA is nothing more than a middle person. And whenever there's a middle person involved, they're always going to take their little cut out of that. Towers Watson, a well-respected consulting firm, did a study of 600 private sector firms, and at the 80th percentile level, they were covering an individual at $9,300. I'm not sure we need to go that low, but if you look at what has been achieved in some of the other negotiations, specifically Dearborn, which got their costs down to $12,000 per employee, I think it's low-hanging fruit. I don't think that's the hardest issue we're going to have to tackle.
Could you please expand on your idea of student evaluations of teachers, specifically your comment about training students?
Yeah, I think when administrators go in to evaluate the teachers, they go through a process where they learn to know what they're looking for. You know, the kids might not like the way that somebody does something, but maybe that's the accepted way of doing it. Just because it doesn't sit well with them doesn't mean that it's wrong. Or I would want to make sure that you had kids that didn't have an axe to grind. If they go through this process, you're going to weed out those kids, I think, and people that are just there to hurt a teacher or say bad things against the teacher, those kids are going to be weeded out, and the people that really want to be there are going to do a good job and are going to evaluate fairly.
If the state does cut our funding more this year, where specifically should we make cuts in response?
Wow. You know, this is, once again, this is going to be, and I'm not trying to dodge the bullet here whatsoever, but it's something that the superintendent and 7 board members are going to look at. And I know we have such wonderful programs in this district. And I was at football game Friday night and saw our fantastic marching band, 230 members strong over this. I went to my high school reunion, 50th high school reunion Saturday night, and about 75% of the marching band came in, and there was probably about 45 kids. You know, and it's a big difference. And this is Class A high school, by the way, where I graduated from. And it's going to, the decisions that we make, and I feel we've already made some at that experience, are difficult. Because when you have to lay off a teacher or a parapro, it's a very tough decision. We've been there. We probably have a couple, slightly over $2 million in fund balance, and we're no doubt talk to her. I think everything we do is going to have to be financially realistic.
So we've talked a lot about making cuts. How can we raise revenue?
One of the things I look at when I look at Saline over the years, I was involved in pay to participate, that decision for clubs and fees, sinking fund, athletic advertisement, sponsorships, you know, you name it in terms of revenue generation. I've been involved in those committees over the last 10 years. So we've done a lot in that regard. What we haven't done is what I saw happen very closely when I was at the University of Michigan. The foundation is a tremendous opportunity for us. If we build that endowment can be used to generate lots of work. Just last week in Connecticut, the school district there put together a $1 million grant in partnership with McGraw-Hill. K-2 classes no longer have textbooks and now have Kindles, and all their materials are done electronically. The materials are updated weekly. It's that kind of a thing that we could have available to us if we think in a broader way. As my friend said in the endowment group at the University of Michigan, if you think big and go for big dreams, the small stuff will play out. If you focus on small stuff, you'll never get to the big stuff.
What do you think of the raising of the NEEP standards, and do you think that will contribute to the phenomena of teaching to the test?
Well, I think we already teach to the test. I mean, that's inevitable, and that's really the only benchmark out there. And maybe that's unfortunate. Somehow we have to have a way of measuring and say, how do we compare to other districts? And in all of that, we turn out pretty darn good. Really what they've done is you know, instead of 90% being a good score, you know, 65 to 70% will be a good score. So all they've done is change the bar level in terms of what is meeting proficiency. So until there's a better way, we're saddled with that. I'm not totally comfortable with it, but that's a system we're under.
We're going to have now closing statements starting on Mr. Freeze.
Okay. I guess in some ways the November 8th election, when you guys talked about evaluation, will be an evaluation of my service to this community over the last 4+ years. I've had the wonderful opportunity to witness so many great things that are taking place within the school district. I'm very proud to serve this community, and I will continue to serve this community. And you know, I bring a lot of experience, not only educationally, and also I want to point out the fact that in order to become a board member, I have taken over 245 hours worth of classes to hone my skills to serve this community.
Number one issue we face is our financial stability. We must reset the financial model of the district. We must address the structural deficit that has been part of our operating plan since 2003. Second issue we face, unacceptable class levels we now have in our district. It's unacceptable to our academic success of our students and the professional success of our many talented educators. Based on last spring's academic performance at our high school, we now are seeing evidence of a decade impact of increasing class size. Our class performance dropped last year. It's time to address these matters. I have a background, I have experiences in this area, I have the passion to do this. I've dedicated a decade worth of my time to this district. and I will continue to do so if I was a member of the board. Thank you.
Mr. Holden?
I'd like to thank Strive, the student group, for sponsoring this tonight. I've certainly enjoyed fielding your questions. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight. You're here because you care about our community, and we all do, everybody in this room tonight. And I think the goal should be, how do we keep Saline an elite school district? I don't think anybody wants to move backwards in this. But as Mr. Zimmer said, we have a structural deficit that Superintendent Graydon described as we're at the end of the road. So we need to address that, and we need to do it in a fair manner. It needs to be an honest discussion. It needs to be a discussion rooted in mutual respect. And we may agree to disagree at times, but we'll do that without being disagreeable. And I think we also need to address the class sizes, because as a result of a cost model that is broke, we're now jamming 40, 42 kids in a high school classroom. That's not fair to the student, and it's not fair to the teacher. So we've got to find a better way. It's going to be a very challenging 6 months, but I feel that I bring a skill set. It's a business skill set that hopefully can contribute to a positive outcome.
Mrs. Stan?
I'm running for school board because I want to avoid gridlock in the district and keep the lines of communication open with all stakeholders. Saline students deserve decision makers who have the students' education as their highest priority, not pushing an agenda where financial cuts are the stated goal. Saline area schools requires balanced leadership to remain excellent. I will consider all positions before making an educated decision. I will listen to all parties with an open mind. There are no issues on which I have irrevocably made up my mind already.
That concludes our debate for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And to put a plug in for PASH, they have a debate coming up on Monday where these four candidates will be in the forum once again at 6:30 on Monday right here. So thank you, everybody, for coming.
This has been an SCTN production.